Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. We don't know when you're watching this, but thank you for watching it. You're watching SJU with Spencer Gilbert.
Hey!
Hey!
Can we tell them that it's pre-taped so they don't think we all just wear the same clothes every day?
Nope, we
No,
sleep
too late,
here.
blew it.
Joe Starr.
Yeah, it's pre-taped. I voted again.
I love to vote so much that I voted 3 times, and a half a time it counted. Let's talk about.
Yeah.
Because it's Wednesday. So let's talk about this. Superheroes. Are they statistically worse and more violent than villains, Dan Murrell?
The bad people, Roth.
They're terrible humans. We have a video about this very topic that Billy would like to discuss with you later. So this is via the...
Nope, we're getting the head shake.
Cut to Billy.
Nope.
He wants to talk about it. So this
Is that the
via...
Tony Stark thing everyone got mad at?
It is.
Oh,
He
sorry.
did a really he had a hot take
You know
with
what's
Billy Business.
BS is that like comicbook.com did the exact same article like a month ago or
Is that
even a
right?
couple weeks ago and nothing. They didn't get half the shit.
Because
that I
you
got.
just did it better.
You did it
Yeah.
so
There you
good.
go.
Don't
Yeah.
ever
You did
look
it.
at the
Joe
flagged
Starr.
comments,
Yeah.
Billy. Trust me.
You did it so well. He has a great theory about how Tony Stark is actually the villain of the MCU. We will not go on that train here, but we will encourage you to go check that out if you like. But we're going to talk about this. This
let
is
him
via
know
the
what you
Wrap.
think
The
about it.
researchers are arguing in a new study that the good guys may actually be the bad guys. What? This is one done by the American Academy of Pediatrics. It was published on Friday at a convention in Orange County, California. I just want to be on a fly on the wall in that convention for like 1.5 hour real late at night. So this is what they found out, that protagonists in superhero movies...
Children's doctors. What do you think they're doing?
Just listening to a lot of
Well,
sublime like
it's like sublime and debauchery. They're
Yeah.
at a convention.
Have you been to Orange County? It's so... No, I won't say it. There might be viewers from the OC.
All right. Well,
It's not-
anyway.
it's not the OC that you've seen on Fox.
It is in some. Let's talk about Orange
All
County
right.
later. Let's just put a pin on Orange County, and talk about bad superheroes who apparently are super violent. Protagonists in superhero movies commit 23 acts of violence per hour, compared to just the 18 per hour committed by antagonists.
That's gotta be
Quick
exhausting.
asterisk: they probably also have more screen time. That said, researchers also analyzed that 10 different superhero movies released between 2015 and 2016 and looked at the specific acts of violence by each character. Now we're going to talk about what those movies would have been and then contextualize this a little bit, because I think this is going to be a fun lesson on the necessity of context. Okay, so the most common act of violence associated with protagonists in these films was fighting at 1,021 total acts, followed by the use of a lethal weapon at 659 acts. That is a lot. Destruction of property, 199. We're looking at you, Superman. Murder, 168. And bullying, this is my favorite. Bullying, intimidation, and torture, 144. Damn!
Still looking at you, Superman. Wow.
We'll have to define what those things mean. And they are concerned. The people that released this study are a bit concerned. They said children and adolescents see the superheroes as good guys and may be influenced by their portrayal of risk-taking behaviors and acts of violence. Pediatric healthcare providers should educate families about the violence depicted in this genre of film and potential dangers that may occur when children attempt to emulate these perceived heroes. Now let's talk about the movies and then we'll dive in. The movies from that period would likely be Fantastic Four, Avengers, Age of Ultron, Ant-Man. That guy is so violent. And also just a dick.
Ant-Man?
No,
Oh.
I think he's not represented here at all. He's like the nicest guy. Although a
He
criminal.
does a lot of punching. It's
Yeah.
just the sheer
Punches a bunch of
level of
people.
punching.
That's
Yeah,
true.
I mean, if the supervillains punched more than the superheroes, then they'd win. So, the superheroes have to get in.
They do have to get
Well,
in there a
at
little
least
bit
the
more.
last
well,
punch.
Let's
Oh, yeah,
get
I'll
the
let you
rest of
finish.
it. Let's get so Ant-Man, Civil War, X-Men Apocalypse, Doctor Strange, Batman v Superman, Deadpool, Suicide Squad. So I'd like to note that I immediately jumped to the defense of the one criminal on that list. No, there's a couple of criminals on that list. And a lot of antagonists, which I think may explain some of this.
Yeah, just
I mean,
to
not
keep-
a lot of
two of them.
anti-heroes, pardon
You
me.
need to do this broken down by screen time because, like you said with the asterisks, I'll bet villains spend most of their screen time punching and bullying and doing and murdering and stuff like that.
Sure, sure.
So if you break it down on a per minute basis, I'm pretty sure you're going to find that the villains are more violent.
2 of those are superheroes fighting each other. Civil War, Batman v Superman. Who's the antagonist? Who's the protagonist? Are they both heroes? Because if they're fighting each other, guess what? Now you have double the amount of heroes punching because they're punching each other. Like, how do you decide which one's the good guy, which one's the bad guy? The movies can't even do that.
Yeah.
And then Deadpool's in there. Deadpool skews the whole thing. Deadpool's got to be like 25% of everything in this study, right? I mean,
certainly the bullying and the intimidation, I believe,
use of
belongs
deadly
largely
weapons,
to
murder,
Deadpool.
Yeah.
Also, hashtag Team Cap. That said, is there something to the idea that characters that are anti-heroes are still up there and largely being represented as the heroes because they're the protagonists? Like, Young Minds, do they distinguish Joe Starr? Tell us, Young Joe Starr.
Between villains and heroes and antagonists and anti-heroes? Like, are kids...
Hip to the skip? I mean, the answer is yes, but...
I mean, they are, but also I don't think companies care or distinguish, and that's why you can go to Target and you can buy a Captain America shield, and you can also buy a Thanos glove, or you can buy Rey's lightsaber. You can also buy Kylo Ren's lightsaber, which is always a weird thing to watch a child want when he's shopping at Target with his dad. Like, that's a bad thing for that dad, for his kid to want a Kylo Ren lightsaber. I think that's sort of an interesting thing too. It's almost like from a studio point of view and from a company point of view, analysis like this almost doesn't matter because at the end of the day, they're all just gonna like get shoved as toys at kids anyway.
Yeah, I agree, Joe. It's like the takeaway from here. You can make a case that these movies are just violent in general, but the distinction of like, whether it's the protagonist or the antagonist that's being violent doesn't matter. The takeaway for kids is like, this is a way to resolve our differences, is to start punching. Like, I can see why parents would be like, let's hold off until we start setting them into superhero movies. But the difference between is Captain America punching 17 more times and Red Skull is punching 16 more times, then they're going to get the wrong impression.
If only films, before they came out, were given some kind of categorization that might provide a guide for parents to know maybe around what age they might be appropriate to send their children to see them. Like, I really think we need to start putting films through some kind of a ratings board.
Well, this is the American Academy.
Might advise parents.
These are pediatricians, and I went to my pediatrician until I was about 19. I would sit in the waiting room with the toys. And
First of all, hit pause. Talk us through that.
I just didn't want to find another doctor, and like I have the same insides as a kid, right? Why move on?
We all got lungs. Right?
Sure.
It took me a while to find a new doctor. He's a good guy.
I think that guy's lollipop game was just strong.
There was candy.
Hella Tootsie Roll Pops. None of that dum-dum.
Wait, you were on a thing before the pediatrician.
No, I was just saying that, these movies are super violent, and it does. I can see subliminally sending the message that, violence solves our problems just if you get dunked into enough of these, but
that is
because you can, and like Dan said, like just go when you're 12, 10, wait till you're older. You shouldn't be 6 years old, certainly not in Deadpool, and probably not in Batman v Superman or any of the PG-13 ones.
Well, I mean, they only do solve their problems through violence because, frankly, anything else, like negotiating their way through, would be cinematically really uninteresting.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's like I think this is really just sort of. We were saying the context of it is like, yes, they are. First of all, I don't know how they counted who's who and what's what and what counts as heroes, and secondly, I mean. Not that you want to send the lessons that the violence is the solution to everything, but a lot of times what these superheroes are fighting for can be important in the context of what's going on. Who they are fighting can be important in the context of what's going on. Sometimes it's just a big old punch-a-thon. Yes, that can be a little exhausting, but sometimes there's a little bit of depth in these things, a little bit of context. And I'm not a fan of when it's when I was growing up as music. Everybody's music was and video games. Music and video games were turning everybody's kids evil. And everything that was wrong with kids was because they were watching this or playing that. And I think that there's a role to be played. If you have young children,
music's been forever.
Music's been forever, yeah. It's
like
nothing new. But something is always behind kids acting But at the same time, it's like there are classifications and ratings in place just for that exact purpose, to guide, hopefully, parents that are monitoring what their kids are doing to say maybe it's not appropriate or maybe it's not appropriate. And I know kids go rogue all the time, but, you know, I mean, I've certainly snuck my fair share of R-rated movies when I was a kid, but they're also R-rated for a reason. I mean, you can only. I hate when the solution is always like, well, then change the movies. It's like, well, maybe there's some behavioral things that could be looked into before you turn to the movies and say, like, they're the things that have to change. Like, there's other factors.
Well, also to your point, there's actually a lot of lessons to be taken from some of these movies, not all of them, but some of them are actually bringing up topics that might invite an interesting discussion for kids, even in the classroom, and some of them have been used that way. Black Panther was used that way in the class, in a college class, I think. Just in any event, they acted.
That's about right, but you're not going to sit down, some fourth graders and be like, so Killmonger wants the liberation of a Pan-African movie. What about
No, probably not. But you know what? That actually brings up an interesting point in the sense that I don't think there are a lot of superhero movies currently that are aimed at fourth graders the same way they used to be. Joe Starr, weigh in.
I am a fourth grader at heart, and
that's why I asked
Black
you.
Panther was the first thing I thought of when you guys were sort of talking about, like, a big reason why these punchy numbers are so high is because not punching would be cinematically boring. And Black Panther was the first one that sort of pinged in my head, where you have two really amazing actors playing characters that are ideologically opposed to each other. So, like, while people throw energon spears at the cyber rhinos, like, let those two, let them talk it out instead
I think
of.
they were normal rhinos with cyber.
Like
they
armored
armored
rhinos with and then they were fighting in the high speed computerized trains. So, like, lower this number with a couple less punches and let them talk it out instead of flip around in the trains.
Just side note, do you know that hippos are really dangerous?
They are.
They do.
But dangerous.
They do a ton of murder, and we're not judging them and taking them out of our movies.
Hippos?
Oh yeah, they murder so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're in Jumanji. They eat Jack Black twice.
Yeah, at least twice.
That's the other thing is, what do heroes do? Heroes burst in the door and they save the day. What do villains do? They monologue. So yeah, of course they're not. That's what villains do. They sit there and they cackle and they tell the hero their evil plan, and then the hero breaks out and they punch out all the goons in the room, and then they punch out the bat. Like, this is not. I mean, this is taking something way more nuanced and just saying, like, well, there's 17 of these and 4 of these, so you need to be careful. It's like, no, you're not paying attention to anything other than some bean counter sitting there tallying the number of times somebody wasted hours of their life counting how many times Doctor Strange punched a stone dude in the face.
Would we call it a waste? Really?
Ding.
What of the study do you now not know?
He got to sit there and watch Doctor Strange enough that he can go through 1 million iterations and know all the stone dudes. Also, the use of the word punching the goons is my favorite down this week.
Punching some goons.
I challenge you to talk
Heroes
about that.
Punch some goons. They do some monologue and you punch him.
Doctor Strange is a cool outlier in there too, where its third act was not punching a lot of goons who were either real people
he
or
was
computerized.
negotiating.
He negotiated.
You're right.
And that was a very good third act.
His brain.
You're right.
He's come to bargain.
Yeah, he's come to bargain.
Joe bested me.
Dormammu.
Dormammu.
You're right.
Come to bargain.
I'm sorry, what is that accent?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lower the punch number.
But you can only do that so many times. However,
you
you're
can only
right.
come to
That
bargain
was a
so many times.
good comment to bargain. Billy Business, do you have a thought on this before we move on to Netflix?
Violence is bad, kids. Don't hit each other. Talk out your problems with your goons.
Nobody really, even adults don't talk out their problems.
Well, sure they do. Every drama film has as much conflict as a superhero movie, but the goons are internal.
Internal goons.
Internal goons.
You also have to keep in mind that part of the study is that they said that, just looking at what they consider violence is destruction. And one of the biggest things in this whole thing is Avengers Age of Ultron, where an entire city is destroyed.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's hard to know exactly what the nuance of destruction means, because they make a point of getting people out of there. But if destruction is literally just the destruction of property, I mean, good
Well,
Lord.
they do talk about property damage, destruction of property versus murder.
After Mom,
and
I've come to
versus
damage
bullying and
property.
intimidation, which I still want to know what that is. Does like Spider-Man smack talking count as bullying and intimidation?
Yes, that's
Does that
a
count?
horrifying
Yeah,
experience to have a little
hanging-
teenager beating the crap out of you and calling you names.
Hanging people
That would
over
be- that would be
the ledge of
humiliating.
roofs.
Yeah.
Batman does most of this stuff.
I would just think that maybe one of the things that they would recommend pediatricians to do, which this is my favorite, is they're recommending that pediatricians sit down their families and talk to them about the violence in superhero movies. Like,
Yeah.
maybe what they should instruct pediatricians to do would be to say, like, hey, listen, your kid seems to like punching. Maybe don't show them so many movies where people are punching people. Or, hey, looks like your kid can watch a movie about people punching people without punching people. So,
Or
I
hey,
think
listen,
maybe
your
they
kid
could-
seems to like punching.
The only
Maybe
thing
there's
I-
some things happening.
The only thing I can think of is maybe they're seeing a higher case of kids coming in with injuries related to acting out sequences from
Oh,
these
interesting.
movies. You know,
Do you remember
What?
in the Mr. Rogers documentary?
Yeah, all the Superman
there was the whole
kids.
sequence about the Superman kids that were getting confused and jumping off the roofs.
Kids are
I've
dumber
been
than you
hearing
think.
that story since I was a kid.
Yeah, that's like the 40 kids
Since
that
the
set fire to
50s.
things in Beavis and Butthead days.
Mr. Rogers was concerned, and if he was concerned,
Sure was.
I'm concerned.
Well, even more than just the punching, another sort of like indirectly violent thing is that, we sort of have an asterisk here about villains very casually dying. And I think it's like an uncomfortable, like weird gray area that the superhero never directly causes it, but sort of just lets it happen. Like they always go, "Oh, my suit," and then explode. Like they're never directly being murdered by the superhero, but yeah, they are.
The blood is on their hands.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
blood is absolutely on their
Wait,
hands.
there's been a couple direct murders.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a few direct murders, but for the most part, it's like, I'm staggering near a cliff that you're sort of also near.
Yeah. It's like, I can save you. No.
I'm greedy and I want the cube. Ah.
I think it would be really hard to know what would impact us or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we're in the world.
We're
think it's-
super soaked in it, and I know at the risk of repeating ourselves, like Dan has the point that I think makes the most sense is that like this isn't children's entertainment. Even if kids like playing Batman and Superman, these movies are aimed or should be viewed by people around 13 years and up. And it's
Yeah.
that simple. Like then they're not gonna do everything they see on screen at that point. But yeah, if you dunk a kid in violent media from
Yeah.
age 5 onward, then they're gonna just kick the crap out of everyone at the preschool.
If you throw a kid in
and you
Suicide
are-
Squad, you can't be angry that you get a Jared Leto on
Yeah.
the side.
don't know.
Like, kid writes damaged in crayon on
Yeah,
his,
they're
on his
gonna
face.
they're gonna be mail-in rats.
Yeah, like you, I don't know. It's hard. The age defense is tough when like all of these movies also have a Lego set and a
don't think-
Playmobil
but-
set.
but
Those
you
are
know
for
what?
us.
But the other thing, I think you're right in that front because they're obviously aiming at kids in terms of the merchandising, but also I watched so many crazy violent horror movies from so young.
And you're
like from
fine.
such
How are you
Oh no,
doing?
we've met, right? Like audience, you know how I am. It's not good. But that's not because of the movies, like it's not because of the movies, and also I'm not particularly violent. Like I really like in real world, I really abhor it. Like in reality, that's the truth, and I always did. Like I hated school fights, and I hated watching someone get punched and hearing that crunch in the blood. Like I was really hated it in reality. So I don't know how much of a correlation there actually is to enjoying real world
Yeah.
violence and fictionalized.
Yeah, I
violence.
think that the more insidious thing about superhero movies is stuff like they're always about maintaining the status quo,
Yeah.
or they're always they just always have this message of looking to the powerful people who are ultimately powerful and also can be good. Like that absolute power doesn't corrupt absolutely. Like there's some subtle things that run across every superhero movie that you can be like, that's not a great message,
Yeah.
but. It's a genre thing. It's like complaining about westerns for having too many horses. Like there's gonna be
There's
punching
a
in the
few
superhero.
too many horses.
These cowboys shoot their guns
If we're
way too
honest, all right. Well, I
horses.
think in this case, no, Joe, what were you gonna say?
No, I'm fine. Just
Coming
quick,
in. Coming in.
just horse PTSD. It's fine.
Yeah,
What
it's
happened?
okay.
I was just tagging your thing.
About what happened with horses?
Oh,
Just
boy.
scary.
Netflix has started
They are
including
terrifying. The brain to body ratio is way off.
of a horse.
Thank you. I've had 3 horses try
but
to
of
kill
a
me.
lot of larger animals, the brain to body ratio.
I know, but we don't try to jump on those.
Yeah, well, we try to jump on. Have you ever heard of a little film called Whale Rider?
No, I haven't.
You haven't heard of Whale
They
Rider?
got pretty big brains, though.
Yeah, those are. Yeah.
They do, but comparably ratio. Okay. The biggest brains
How
of
many people
all
has a
the
whale
animals.
punched?
Which animal has the biggest brain?
Probably a whale, given this segue.
You are
No?
incorrect.
Oh, who?
Dolphins.
How many punches
Actually,
do
it's
movie
the
whales
sperm
throw?
whale.
Oh!
No, it's dolphins, and then the human being.
Sorry, Billy's got Google.
I mean,
I've seen it in a museum. Therefore, do you believe a museum
Or Google?
or do you believe Google?
I think you're having 2 different discussions.
Okay.
I think Roth is probably
We-
talking about proportional to body size, and
Yeah, you're
probably
talking about
surface
in total
actual
mass.
surface mass.
Surface
is
mass.
my guess here. Please let
I
that
think
be
we
the
should
answer.
move on.
I think
That's
you should
what I
punch each
think.
other.
Technically speaking, I'm in charge of this, so I'm going to move on. So is Netflix starting? Although that's just a grand illusion. Is Netflix starting to include special features in a la Blu-rays and DVDs? Film wants to know. So this weekend on Netflix, The Other Side of the Wind, which is this is about the making of the Orson Welles Lost Incomplete film, which was released. Okay, I'm going to start that again. The Other Side of the Wind, which is the Orson Welles film, was released, but along with it, there was basically a special feature called The Final Cut, 40 years in the making. So the question here is, with ostensibly speaking, physical media going away, although that's a question mark that Billy and I have talked about quite a bit. And so the day of the special feature and the Blu-ray, blah, 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 not so much in play anymore. Netflix is making all of these originals, and could they hope to bolster their game in the streaming wars by adding on things that would traditionally have gone on Blu-ray? Thoughts? And then I want to talk about Netflix, because I got a bone to pick with you.
I don't know. It's interesting. I don't see it as much as like, a competitor with DVDs, but it's like just a chance for them to experiment with other formats of doing movies and miniseries, or just little bits and pieces that you can tag to the movie itself. Like that's a fun place for them to play. I mean, it's not a selling point because DVD extras are usually terrible.
They're so
Yeah.
often terrible.
Yeah,
They're
and
very rarely
usually
good.
the afterthought of an afterthought of an afterthought.
Yeah. They were special at the time. They were so it was such a new thing.
There's some good ones every now
When
and then.
commentary
Yeah.
started and all that, but now it's like everywhere.
Yeah, so just I guess if they're really going to take advantage of it, like you don't even have to restrict yourself to the normal use of a DVD extra. Like you can keep putting stuff up there related to the movie long after it comes out.
Yeah, this is basically a mini documentary, which is about this is a really interesting making of, because
Sure.
it was lost and it's Orson Welles and all of those things. Would you be more likely to hang on to your Netflix if there were those offerings for you, Joe Starr?
I mean, I'm certainly in no danger of losing my Netflix.
Sure.
They have me. I haven't really been super obsessed with special features since the 15-hour Lord of the Rings cut trilogy came out, and came with here's 24 hours worth of the Journey to Middle Earth with Peter Jackson, and here's 8 different commentaries with different segments of the cast. And
This one's got more looking at Rivendell. in
yeah,
it.
look at that. Those are the ones I was really, really obsessed with, and I can't really remember being excited for I can't wait to see all the behind the scenes stuff for this since then. But I feel like Netflix could get away with a lot with just the sheen of how cool Netflix is, that they could start offering little things like this and people be like, oh my God, did you see what Netflix did?
If they could do
Oh my
alternate cuts.
God.
Oh my God, did you see
Did
it?
you see what
Did you guys see what
Netflix
Netflix
did?
did? And you're like, you mean they did what DVDs did? And they're like, yeah, but it's
but
Netflix.
it's Netflix.
Streaming.
Dan,
Streaming.
are you married to Netflix?
I don't think that physical media is going anywhere. Call me crazy, but I actually think that as everything starts getting shotgunned out across more different platforms, that people are going to gravitate even more toward, I don't want to subscribe to 17 different ones, so I'm just going to buy the Blu-ray, because buying one Blu-ray for $14 is a lot cheaper than subscribing to 8 streaming services for $70 a month. Maybe I'm crazy and naive. I love the idea of a streaming service that offered great special features. There was one, and it was called Filmstruck, and now it's gone because we can't have anything nice. But that was the streaming service
We
that
can't have nice
put a
things.
huge premium on not just offering a great viewing experience, but offering commentaries, introductions, behind-the-scenes stuff, and it was called Too Niche because they didn't focus on the right kinds of movies.
Well, they weren't able to make money. I mean, they weren't like it's sad to you and it's sad to me. And I wish that Filmstruck could have.
Bill
kind of-
Hader also
but,
frustrated.
Like I'm frustrated. It's personally frustrating for a friend of ours. I wish Netflix or someone had been able to like bring them into the fold or something so that we would still have Filmstruck. But
I
they
mean,
weren't
my
able to make
question
money.
is always, did they not make enough money, or did they not make money? Because I think that's two different things. Like, were they not making money, or were they not making enough money for Warner's to say, like,
Films-
oh, we're going to keep
It's a
them around?
Warner. It was a Warner streaming service, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
so
Warner's
it just gets
having-
dumped into the Warner
yeah.
streaming service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, unclear. Who
unclear.
knows?
That was Filmstruck was its own thing. My
Yeah.
point being, like, I think that there
But
is
probably
model.
you're saying the Criterion Collection would now go under that. Probably you're right. And as a business model, sure. I mean, doesn't that make more sense for them? And we talked about them bundling, Warner bundling.
I think that there is a service plan that I think there's interest out there for that kind of thing, but like would a Netflix put the cost and expense on top of everything else that they're already producing to add supplemental features for everything? I don't know. I think it would be a very weird, I think that would be a move that the studios would do if they gave up on Blu-rays altogether. Because otherwise they don't have any reason, you're lessening reasons for people to go buy their Blu-rays, because if you can just get the special features on Netflix, then
Sure,
why
that's
go buy the Blu-ray?
Well, but I think that the point, I think that the point the slash film, pardon me, is making, and that we are also making, is that it wouldn't be for film, because Netflix is moving away from licensing as much as they can. They're more O&O. And because Disney has its own service and Warner Brothers is going to have its own service, I think that's a great point, Joe. Probably the Criterion Collection would fall under that, which Filmstruck had. That said, so you're right. Those studios would have an investment in releasing Blu-rays, but for Netflix, most of what they're doing, they're not coming out on Blu-ray. They're not coming out in theaters. They're living on Netflix. Their number one goal is to keep you on Netflix. So for them, specifically for their original programming, it would make sense.
I think there's an interesting play too. If for example, if we're not going to get a new Sabrina for like another 2 years, if in 1 year they're like, man, Sabrina's kind of buried again, because Netflix is often victim to what's the hot new thing on Netflix right now, and then it's gone. But if a year in, if they're like, you know what, we would really like to surface again. Hey guys, remember Sabrina? Well, here's an awesome making of documentary and behind the scenes and interviews with the blah blah blah, just to sort of like reignite interest in stuff that's otherwise sort of buried in the algorithm, to sort of pop it back up.
I've always found it odd that Netflix put some of its shows out on Blu-ray, because you would think that they would just offer whatever's on that Blu-ray on
The only ones that I think they've done are when they're in co-productions or it's a license, like the Marvel shows.
Maybe. I know House of Cards was put out. At least a few
you're
seasons
right.
of House of Cards have been on Blu-ray.
But that
I have
was
Stranger
actually
Things on Blu-ray.
That was also licensed. It wasn't. They didn't make it. They didn't make House of Cards.
Stranger Things is on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
I have the first season of Stranger Things. I mean, they do put not all of them, but select shows out on Blu-ray. The Marvel shows. It's just there's sometimes I'm like, oh, that's weird. You'd think Netflix would just sort of fold that into.
Sure.
But I think they sometimes also know that there is a collector's market out there that will pay extra for that.
I have to asterisk House of Cards. I need to look into that because they were still licensing them. They paid $100 million for the first 2 seasons, but I'm not sure if they were going to a production company outside. We'll have to look into that. But yeah, you're right. That is interesting and weird. And maybe they would stop doing that. I have a question about Netflix, though. And here it is.
Okay.
And House of Cards. Thank you for bringing that up specifically.
Okay.
Because House of Cards, to me, and I think there's been a couple of articles written about this, was the turning point for how we viewed streaming. It was no longer like, this is a web series and it's dumb and it's on YouTube. Hello. It's like it's this premiere thing and it's prestige and we take it seriously and we give people Emmys and stuff like that.
We're just as good as House of Cards.
Oh, I mean, without a doubt. Yeah.
We've arrived.
By the way, I would argue we're pretty close to the past couple of seasons. But that first season was incredible. That said, so I feel like it marks this turning point in streaming, and this last should be very, 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 very significant season also marks another turning point in which there's such a glut, they are just buried. It comes out like this Orson Welles thing should have been a big deal. The other side of the wind should have been a big deal. But honestly, in my Netflix queue, I had to go searching for House of Cards. It didn't even pop up.
It's they're salvaging the best of a bad situation. Like, it's kind of buried on purpose.
I don't think it is, because everything's buried. Do you remember, I barely registered that Daredevil season 3 was out.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's buried for you, but that must be because you watched too much British Bake Off or something, and they're like, you probably won't watch this.
There's no such thing.
No such thing as too much British Bake Off.
The way the algorithm works is it tries to predict what you want to see and put that first. So you'll probably have to dig deep for things that it can't predict.
But I agree, though. These should transcend personal preference. Like, these should be big cultural things, or at least, I agree that it has lost some of the idea of, like, there's so much thing on Netflix that nothing on Netflix is special anymore. It's just another thing. Whereas if Daredevil were on AMC and season 3 came out, like, that would be a big deal, because people would be talking about it. There'd be
week to week,
and people. Not that people don't, but it gets buried.
Well, I think there's got to be some discussion on how hard are we going to push this thing. In the case of Daredevil, you had Daredevil, then you had Jessica Jones, and then Luke Cage was fine, and then Iron Fist was fine, then Defenders, and then there's been a case of diminishing returns for Marvel Defenders, for instance. So I'm curious.
And House of Cards. House of Cards has been in decline before Kevin Spacey left.
Definitely.
I bailed season 3.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I went back in, but it was very silly.
Yeah, America Works campaign. Once the rise to power is over, it's like, okay, well that's what the show was about. I don't care anymore.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Did you ever see the British? No? Okay, we'll discuss later.
Bake Off.
Bake Off,
Great
which
British
again,
Bake Off.
there can never be too much of. But I do think it's a weird state. I mean, Julia Roberts came out this weekend in her series on Amazon. There's so much of everything, nothing means anything. There's no meaning, Joe.
How am I not myself? That's Huckabees, sorry.
Oh, is that okay?
Remember that Jack Ryan series that was coming out that was everywhere, the billboards and everything? Have you heard?
Well, that was a challenge. It came out, and it was
about
fine.
it since it came out.
Right.
Yeah, that's the challenge. Is it came out and it's fine, Or
no one watched it. It's still on their queue.
Yeah.
Just waiting.
Yeah, of course. The publicity and the all the promotion, it follows quality. Like Stranger Things, they didn't expect it to be as gigantic as it was. They just kind of gave the Duffer Brothers a little money and fine, go see what you can do.
Same
and then
with,
once
Haunting.
Yeah, and so they don't know what's going to be big, so it's kind of after the fact, or after the fact meaning as soon as they turn in cuts, maybe they're like, "Ooh, this isn't great. We're not going to push this to the front of our 7 billion people long queue."
That's a fair point, and it isn't great. So that's an actual fair point.
It looks like it was shot. I'm not finished with the last season, but the new season looks like it was shot in a local news station.
Which one?
House of Cards. You could tell they cut their budget
so
much. It doesn't look like the same show.
Yeah.
It's very sad.
I think it deserves more than it got. And but that's a different discussion for a different day. It's bad. It's just not good.
They should have just poochied him and Kevin Spacey went back to his home planet and then the show's over.
That is what they should have done. But instead they shot,
or K-Paxed him, sorry.
K-Paxed him back to his planet. It actually feels like they shot a season that is heavily dependent on Frank, and he's supposed to be in every scene, or at least every other scene, and they went out and just spliced him and then connected them all together. And that's how it feels. It's just what's happening?
We could go on with a review of House of Cards, but you're not watching it. I can tell no one is. So why would we do that?
Roth thinks no one's watching.
Guys, remember when I said we were going to do a Deadpool story today because we didn't do it yesterday? That was also today.
Yeah.
We're going to do it tomorrow.
Okay.
Because we're out of time.
Wow.
But tomorrow is actually. Oh wait.
Tomorrow's 2 days from now.
Tomorrow is 2 days from now, but tomorrow for you watching
is
tomorrow. It will be tomorrow.
That's
or
right.
I can speed through it right now and we can never speak of this again. I leave it to
Deadpool's
you.
our Matt Damon.
Vote.
No, let's keep
pushing
wanting.
it back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe Starr?
Yeah.
Push it back?
Let's
Apologies
talk about
to
this.
Deadpool.
long after it's relevant.
Okay,
We
apologies
should
to
do it.
Deadpool and his family. Your relevance will go the way of House of Cards by the time we get to the story. Movie Fights, though, is tomorrow. With, God damn it, Ken Knapsack versus
Ooh.
Vanessa Gritton versus Rachel Evans.
All right.
Speaking of, I want to talk about Sunny. But we'll do that tomorrow,
In
too.
Philadelphia. Is
Yeah.
what I'm
Oh.
saying.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
let's
I got
talk.
thoughts on this season.
Okay.
I got some thoughts.
I'm a little behind. I'll catch up today.
We'll see you today, tomorrow, and on Thursday. I think. I'm confused.
I love you more today than yesterday.